Brock Holt, Brockstar, making a little cameo on Brew Crew territory, and we're about to hear from Corbin Burnes. But Big Woo is likely going to be moving on, Brock. I mean, there is still a chance that he signs with the Brewers, but they did not tender him a contract, which means he doesn't go to arbitration. The number probably would have been in the $11 million range. The Brewers are not going to pay that kind of money for almost anyone, and they're especially not going to pay it to a guy that they're not sure about for this upcoming season. Big Woo looks like a classic 2-year contract candidate, so that even if he comes back towards the end of the 2024 season, you get a full 2025, and then he can reestablish his value on the market. And also potentially be a huge bargain for a team like we've mentioned, the Dodgers, who like to pick up guys like this who are coming off surgeries or injuries and then end up getting a lot of surplus value out of them because their value is not as high as a Big Woo who's had like a career 3.10 ERA with Milwaukee.
Yeah, I actually talked to Brandon maybe 3 days before the non-tender, and he goes, "Your boy might be a free agent here in a few days." And I'm like, "No chance." And he told me, he's like, "They might non-tender me because they don't want to pay me when I'm not pitching." And I was like, "No, they can't do that." Sure enough, Big Woo knew. But yeah, I hate it for the Brewers. I hate it. Hate it for the Brewers. I love Big Woo. He's one of my favorite teammates that I've had, and I wasn't there for very long. But I love it for someone like, say, the Boston Red Sox, another James Paxton, if you will. Get that 2-year deal, get him back to health, and the Red Sox need pitching. So got my fingers crossed for that one. But yeah, huge Big Woo fan. Whoever gets him is getting a good one. So and he's going to do whatever he can to get back and get back on the mound as soon as he can.
Yeah, it's another really good name in terms of a team that's taken chances on players like that, and the return could be huge. So let's hear what Corbin Burnes has to say about Big Woo and about himself, because Craig Counsell's gone, and we'll get Corbin's reaction there. The only thing to keep in mind is the combo we had here with Corbin occurred right before Big Woo was non-tendered by the Milwaukee Brewers, as in, sent to free agency. We knew it was coming, so we kind of anticipated it within the question, but just keep that in mind. And let's hear from Corbin Burnes, star of the Milwaukee Brewers.
Your thoughts on what he's going through right now and how, the next couple years could look very different from him depending on where he ends up. And we might find that out pretty soon.
Yeah, when he initially went down, early in the year, with the shoulder strain over it was, I felt bad for him just because he was one so hard to get back out there. He was throwing the ball well. It was a time that we could really use him before we had Wade got beat up a little bit, and some guys got beat up. But then when it happened again at the end of the year, I just felt bad for him. It was just like one of those things that you never want to have go through. Have a teammate go through. So I felt bad for him. I talked to him a couple weeks ago, and he was already on the mend, rehabbing, getting after it. I think he wants more than anyone to get back on that mound and show what he is and show what he can do, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, so we did find out that Craig Counsell has moved on to the Chicago Cubs and haven't spoken to you since that. So let's just start with your initial reaction and play-by-play during that time period of what happened, because we know he made the phone calls and wanted to be the one to deliver news to everybody.
Yes, I was shocked. Actually, it was my wife that came out and told me. I was out in the gym working out. Our strength coach was over at the house. He comes over a couple days a week and works out with me. And we were waiting for the decision like everyone else was, whether it was going to be us or the Mets. And my wife came out and goes, "Hey, did you see where Counsell just signed?" I was like, "Did he sign with the Mets?" And she goes, "No." And she was like, "You going to the Cubs?" I was like, "No shot. Like, you're just screwing with me." Which was kind of, I think, the reaction with everyone. And so that's when I got the phone and started looking at the messages. And maybe 2 minutes after that, after I saw the news, is when he called me and just kind of told me everything went on and thanked me for the last couple of years, and giving him the opportunity because of what we did on the field, gave him that opportunity to take that job. So, kind of cool that you allowed him to be in that situation, but also kind of weird to hear that he was going to the Cubs. But good for him. I'm happy for him. He's setting records, setting precedences for a manager. So you can't be angry at them for that. But definitely a weird couple hours that we went through there.
What's it going to look like? You look over there in their dugout to see who the next pinch hitter is, and you see Counts over there going, Are you gonna flip him the bird, like for like a little bit, like just one time, like scratch your head with your middle finger?
Nah. I mean, my goal is always to go out and win baseball games and shove it up the other team's ass. That's what I'm. my plan every time I go out there. So it doesn't change that he's over there. Maybe for some of our front office guys and others that were involved in that process. But I think for us as players, we have a job we got to do. It doesn't matter who we're playing, who's managing. You still got to go out and you still got to play baseball that day. And I mean, I might be a little weird seeing him in a different dugout, but gosh, I mean, Murph knows the guy more than anyone, so he's kind of going to be in Council's head a little bit as far as game planning, that kind of stuff. Because Murph and Council have worked so closely the last 7 or 8 years that I think those two are going to kind of know how each other are thinking through different situations.
Hey, before we get to Murph, my question is, do you think that Counts is being treated fairly by some people in Milwaukee that are pissed that he left, like as if he kind of abandoned the team or something like that, and not maybe understanding how business works? I was surprised because I saw actually plenty of Brewers fans on social being like, damn, it's a manager. It doesn't cost that much. If we really wanted him, we should have kept him, and we had him forever, right? Like, he hit free agency. He's trying to kind of change things because, let's be real, also, there were managers like 20 years ago making more money than anyone else has made in the manager world for a while, and they were trying to bring those down. So I respect him for doing that and kind of representing his peers. Yes, it was not the cleanest way to do it based on how it went with David Ross, but your thoughts on how he's being perceived, because he did a lot for the city.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to look at it. You're either going to be on the side of Counts, you betrayed the city for, you've been there for so long, you played there for so long, you grew up there, you lived there. So you're going to take that side of it, or you're going to take the side of, hey, you got an opportunity that is going to be life changing. If you look at it in a business, in a real world perspective, like, are you going to take the job that's going to pay you a little bit less just because it's more convenient, or do you want to take the chance and go somewhere that you get paid a lot more money? It's still not a terrible situation. You're an hour from home, so it's not like he's moving across the country. And you also get to kind of push the envelope as far as what managers have been paid, what coaches have been paid, and kind of get that going in the right direction. So there's really two ways to look at it. Obviously, you're going to get both from Milwaukee fans, but understandably so. But it's change. I don't think a lot of people like change. But I think with Murph stepping in, it's probably the next best thing as far as the transition, clubhouse-wise, staff-wise. It's probably the easiest transition.
And that's what I was going to bring up about Murph. Been there for 8 years now with Council. What do you say? What do you think are his best attributes? What do you think he's going to bring to the table here from Milwaukee? And I've talked to him a couple of times before games. Just seems like an upstanding guy, funny guy, jokester too as well.
Yeah, he's going to keep it light in the clubhouse. That's what Murph has done really well for us. He's kind of the sounding board for not only the players last couple of years, but Counts as well. To bounce ideas off. He connects with all of us. He's been around the game for so long. He managed the minor leagues. He managed college baseball forever. So he's not afraid to kind of get in your face and say, hey, you're not very good. You suck. You need to pick it up. But then he's also there to to pick you up. You have a tough outing, like, hey, these guys just got lucky. Just keep your head down and keep going. So he's definitely a good guy to relate to us. But yeah, he's definitely going to keep it light in the clubhouse. Very even keel guy. Things are going good. Things are going bad. You're never going to know it. He's not going to panic. He's just going to be the right guy, I think, for the situation that we're in. And with a lot of guys returning, I think it's just kind of the easiest transition of not having a ton of turnover at the top. Obviously, him leading the charge now and Ricky coming in to be underneath him will be a little bit of a change. But those guys, Ricky's been around the Brewers for the last couple of years, that it's really not that big of a difference.
Who was over at the house? Was my little brother over at the house? Was Meredith over there watching you on fire?
Yep.
Wow.
Meredith comes over. He kind of does like half the lift. He kind of picks what he wants to do and then just kind of
doesn't do anything.
But I mean, guy's he's a mannequin basically. He's 6'7".
He's perfectly built. We look exactly the same. We're twins. Sometime we'll get the video. He actually dressed up as me in a catching drill during spring training in 2019, and nobody knew it was me.
I couldn't tell the difference
until he threw with his right hand, and he's left-handed, and he threw. So I'll find that video at some point, and we'll get it on here. It was exciting. But talking about working out, I'm looking at the Cy Young Award here, and not your Cy Young that you so egotistically hung up behind you.
Nice.
It's so nice.
Today's Cy Young Award, because obviously, good for Blake Snell. He won it. But to me, and I've never been in any running for any award, but I look at what you did this season, and I feel like 8th is kind of a slap in the face. Do you think it's because they expect more from you, so when you do some really awesome things, they're like, it's not the best Corbin Burnes? Because you and Zach Gallen are the only ones that had over 200 strikeouts this year, had over 195 innings, and yet Zach Gallen gets 3rd place and you get 8th?
Yeah, so that's it. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there with I won the Cy Young with a 2.4 ERA and all these stats that now when the numbers come down at the end of the year, it kind of turns into, well, yeah, he had a good year, but look at what he won the Cy Young with. So that that definitely would knock me down a little bit. I look at my year last year, 2022, I had a 2.9 ERA and I was 7th in Cy Young with 230 something strikeouts. Like, it's just one of those things that I'm going to have another unbelievable type of year like I did in 21 to even be in consideration again. But, I think that's just kind of, tip your hat to those guys that have good years this year and last year. But, definitely, I think I will always be compared to that year. And that's something that I actually have talked to Yelly about, and also Counts when it happens. Like, Yelly went out and had a great year again this year. I mean, he didn't get any MVP votes, but probably should have got at least a couple. But he gets compared to his 18 and 19 years, and that's just kind of what you got to deal with of having a really good year. And for the rest of our careers, those are the years that we're going to get compared to.
Corbin, I mean, do you think that with Counts leaving and Woody's injury and potentially maybe not being with the team, do you think the team might go in a different direction in your mind? And I'm assuming that you're not getting spoken to in the offseason unless there's actually news.
Yes, I don't know. It's been a couple off seasons now that my name is always floated out there. It's something that I've kind of just grown accustomed to now. You try not to read into too much. You hear from all the different sources that we're going to sell, we're keeping everyone. As far as my perspective on it is, I got to keep working out, keep training as if I'm going to go back to the Brewers. If I get traded, it's not like I'm going to go play a different game. I still gonna have to go out and pitch and do what I do. So for me, preparation wise, I'm doing the same stuff. I always have. I'm not preparing this for this team. It's just go out and prepare. And if something happens where I'm traded, then so be it. I'll go out and do what I can. But everything that I had talked to at the end of the year, everything I'm hearing. I think it's more just the Brewers doing their due diligence and saying, hey, if we get an offer, great. But my perspective and where I'm at is I'm getting ready to be ready to go opening day for the Milwaukee Brewers.
You kind of have an idea of who's out there in free agency. If you take Shohei out, because he's kind of a unicorn, and not kind of, he is. Do you feel like you are the best arm available if the Brewers make you available?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It depends on if you're a GM, what you're looking at. Obviously, you can go out and spend some money and lock up some guys to long-term deals that could be a huge part of your future. And me, I'm a 1-year rental. It's tough to really value that. I think you see each year guys get traded in the same situation I'm in, and it's always valued different. Your relievers are valued even differently. You could look at us trading Hader, in the trade deadline a couple years ago. So it's one of those things that it kind of depends on how you're valued by each team and how each team looks at long-term deals versus short-term deals. But I'd like to say I'm up there as far as put my name in the running for 1 year, the best arm out there, yeah, I would like to put myself at the top of that list.
Talking about trades and stuff, it's I've been a part of it too many times, and it's like the first time I ever got traded, I kind of took it personal because I've been there with the Reds. I talked to them about making me a long-term deal. They said they would. 2 weeks later, I got traded. All that kind of stuff. So I just want to get your perspective. Maybe if you do end up getting traded, to understand, like, is that personal to you? Is it something that you might be pissed off about? I'm sure you'll be upset. Don't get me wrong, but it's something like that you're gonna linger with a little bit.
I think if you had asked me that question a couple of years ago, I probably would have said yeah. A little bit upsetting. Thought I was going to be in a Brewers uniform long term. Kind of all those emotions you go with. Now knowing kind of where I'm at in the process and having had some of those conversations with agents and front office with the Brewers, just knowing that, hey, we would love to have you long term. It's kind of one of those things that I've priced myself out of Milwaukee. That's kind of what they basically told me is like, look, we love to, but we're not going to, kind of offer you some long term deal that's really just kind of disrespectful kind of thing. So for me, that's I like to hear that, and obviously you like to hear that a team's not going to put out a disrespectful number and kind of tarnish what you've done for them for the last 5 or 6 years. So I respect them for that, but. It'll definitely be weird if you get traded, going to a different team versus the organization that I've been with for 7 or 8 years. But it would definitely be weird, but not heartbreaking as it would have been maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Have you had any contract extension talks with them, with the Brewers?
No, that was never something that we got to. I think that obviously coming off the shortened season in 2020, where I had my first good year, going in after the signing in 21, I think for them it was kind of, hey, wait and see if this was kind of a one-off year, or if they thought this was going to be something that we could possibly explore long term. And then I've just had year after year that have been good. That I think it just got to the point that, like, hey, they just know their situation, where they're at, and their market size, and instead of making a player angry for sending a bad a really small or short term or low number for an extension, it's just like, hey, we just be upfront and say, hey, we respect what you've done, and we're not gonna come at you with something that we don't feel is what you're worth as far as the market goes. So never really talks there. If I think a couple of years ago, I was probably open to going and getting something done, but I think at this point we just kind of both sides know that, hey, we're a year away from free agency. We want to see what the market can bring, we'll see what happens.
That's awesome. That's a great, because I never thought about the fact that if it could hurt your feelings if they bring a low offer. So not necessarily never giving you an offer, but I never thought about that. Now, beginning of this season, when you first came on here, we talked about the arbitration process. Do you feel like you're going into the next arbitration process with, I'll give you 2 choices, still hurt feelings where you're kind of like, all right, I got to go through this again, or you coming in there strutting like a peacock, like, look, I did it again, I balled out, let's sit down, I enjoyed talking to you, and let's get this thing over with?
Yeah, I think it's going in with my head held high. We've had, like you say, we've had 4 good years in a row now. We know what the process is like. There was obviously stuff said on their part last year. There was a learning curve on my part this year of kind of how we can better handle it and not get to that point. But as far as arbitration goes, all you've got is your numbers to back you up. So I feel good with what I've done again this last season, and we'll see how arbitration plays out, but I would predict that this time through won't mirror at all what happened last year.
Hey, my last question here. They talk about the pitch clock now moving from 20 seconds to 18 seconds. Your thoughts on that? Do they just want every pitcher to have to go through a cycle of, making sure they're breathing, their techniques are right? I think 2 seconds, it should have went the other way. But what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. I don't think what MLB is doing, they haven't looked at the repercussions of the pitch clock from last year. They've been telling us on our calls that the injuries are not related to it at all, and there's no spike in injuries. But I think if you just look at the injuries we had in general, there's more Tommy Johns going on, than we've ever had. Just the detrimental injuries, I think, are something that is going to be attributed to the pitch clock. If you talk to starting pitchers that have been around the game for a long time, Max Scherzer, Verlander, some of these guys that now all of a sudden are having this pitch clock, and that you just wear out quicker. So it's one of those things that, if you have an extra 2 or 3 seconds on the pitch clock, you have yourself to get an extra breath. I think you're going to limit some of the major injuries. Obviously, some of the minor stuff that pops up here and there. I don't think that's attributed to the pitch clock, but I think some of the long-term year and a half recoveries are due to this pitch clock being so short. And I think shortening it even more would cause even more damage. So, I understand they're trying to cut 7 more minutes out of the game, but I think you just get to the point where you're like, look, is doing this here or there and risking a guy's career for the next 5 or 6 years really worth it if you're going to start losing some of your star names that are going to go down and lose some interest in the game? Because I think I saw some stat that attendance and interest in the game was up 9 or 10%. So it's like, are you really trying to gain a couple more percent by knocking off 7 minutes of a game and risking, some of your star players' careers?
So I'll push it forward, just knowing that they're not going to care. There's a reason why the competition committee is it only has 4 players and there's 6 on the other end, so they're never going to win on any of those topics, right? Regardless of what's right and wrong. So when we push forward, what can the game do, even from like a younger pitcher standpoint, like developing pitchers, to try and adjust to this? Like, is there a way that pitchers should now be preparing themselves for the future to not get hurt? Because the guys that have been in the game for a while, we're gonna have Max on, I think, next week, and obviously he's gonna be pissed too. But do you think there's anything we can do going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to change how guys train. It's changed how I'm training this offseason. A lot more cardio involved, a lot more sprint work, that kind of stuff, to try and get your body to recover faster, obviously, in that basically 10 to 12 second window. Everyone likes to think of it as it's 15 seconds and it's 20 seconds, and it's really not, because you're delivering the pitch, you're getting the ball back, you're getting back on top of the mound, you're losing a couple seconds there to really have time to take a breath and get your feet back underneath you. It's really only 7 or 8 seconds. So when you look at it, you look at Olympic sprinters and stuff that are sprinting those short distances. They're not going sprint after sprint after sprint. They're getting time to get their breath, let their muscles recover. So obviously it's a little bit different, but being a pitcher, it's an explosive movement over and over and over again. So taking time away for us to get that extra breather, I think it's going to cause more problems than it is going to help to try to cut off another minute or 2 of a game. I think MLB is maybe going a little bit too far with this, and I agree with Todd. It should be the other way. You should be adding a couple seconds without guys on base, because 15 seconds is really short. But like you say, there's 4 of us in the competition committee that we have some pretty good names on there advocating against it, but when you got 6 owners on there, you kind of outnumbered.
Yeah, they have no shot. All right, last one, just a number, okay? Or just how many ejections this year? Some fans are asking for Pat Murphy. Give me a number, a guess.
Oh, I've actually had this conversation with him back and forth, so I'm gonna go with 5. My number stands at 5. I'm going
4.5. So
Jackson said 4.5 in the chat. So boom, there you go. I love it. Corbin, good stuff, dude. Great catching up with you. Keep crushing it this off season. We'll catch you probably in a few weeks or something.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
FT senior insider Ken Rosenthal addressed the Brandon Woodruff situation on his own show, Fair Territory, and he said this.
Shoulder surgeries are tricky. They're not the same as Tommy John's, which generally have a more predictable rehabilitation. I'll put it that way. At this point in the game's evolution, Tommy John surgeries, first ones, routinely go well. Ohtani, of course, underwent his second procedure. So you can predict a guy is going to come back in 12 to 18 months, whatever it is. And generally, guys who come off first Tommy Johns do pretty well. Shoulders can be much more difficult to predict, much less linear in the progressions that pitchers make in the rehabs. It's just a tougher thing. So Brandon Woodruff might not be what Tyler Glasnow was coming off his elbow surgery. Glasnow got a 2-year, $30.35 million deal, I believe it was. It was over 30. Woodruff might not get that much, but he is Brandon Woodruff. And this is the start for the Brewers of an offseason that is going to be quite interesting.
All right, so Brock, now it's time to fast forward for Milwaukee, okay? Brandon Woodruff likely gone, and Craig Counsell is definitely gone, although they'll see him very frequently with the Chicago Cubs. Pat Murphy takes over, longtime bench coach of the team, very well liked, very different personality too. I would say Craig Counsell will admit this, even though he's got some jokes. Pat Murphy is hilarious and knows how to loosen up a room in 5 seconds and also lay it down. Like, he is very transparent. He'll give you the real talk. So I think many of the Brewers fans are excited about him. And we get to see Ricky Weeks joining the team as an associate manager, not a bench coach, the new title of associate manager, which is popping up around baseball right now. So this is the next step for them. And Ken Rosenthal has told us that he doesn't necessarily think this team's going to tear it down after winning a division title.
Yeah, that associate manager, what's that, 2 now? You got Venables in Texas and you got Ricky Weeks in Milwaukee. So there's
DeMarlo Hale.
DeMarlo Hale
Toronto Blue Jays now is an associate manager.
There's 3, so there's 27 left. I'm looking for one of those jobs. I'm looking
a
for
remote one though.
The backup manager is what I want.
Remote associate manager from Tennessee.
From Tennessee, so I don't have to go anywhere. I love the Pat Murphy hire. He's one of my favorites. I keep saying it. I was with the Brewers for 28 seconds of my career, but Pat Murphy is one of my favorite people I've ever been around. Like you said, he's hilarious. I've got a video on my phone of Pat Murphy that I watch almost every day. And me and him kind of had a running. He gave me a ton of shit when I was there, and he just knows how to keep things loose, and that's what you need, especially from a guy in his position. Like, you want somebody that you can talk to and you can approach, and he's definitely that. So I love that hire. I know the guys in Milwaukee love that hire. He's been there. It's not going to be a huge change from Craig Counsell because they've worked together for so long. So love that hire. Ricky Weeks will come in and do a great job. The Brewers should be fine, depending on what they do with the roster. You've seen rumblings of, hey, we're open to moving anyone. But I think with the guys that they have, if they stay put, maybe do some little ads here and there like the Brewers normally do, I think they've got a good chance to be a winning team and to make the playoffs again under Murph in his first year.
And one more thing I wanted to point out, because I didn't mention it yet, was not to be overshadowed because he is a presence. Rowdy Tellez was also non-tendered by this team. They basically are attempting to replace him with Jake Bauers. We'll see how that goes. They're losing a big personality from the clubhouse, but for Rowdy, he's already been on with us. He's working the Pilates. He's trying to be in the best shape of his life come spring training and have a bounce back season after being basically a 30 and 100 guy the year before. So I think someone's going to scoop him up and be pretty pleased with what they just did. So look out for that.
Yeah, look out for Rowdy. Rowdy's gonna, Rowdy's Rowdy. Obviously he's a hoot. Everyone loves him in the clubhouse, and he's gonna hit some homers for you. So whoever gets him, good ad. That's typical Brewers move, right? Like, hey, it's getting to the point where, we don't want to spend X amount, so we're going to go a different direction and see what happens. It normally works out for them. So,
well, Rowdy will be back on this show. Corbin will be back on this show, and many others. So we will see you throughout the offseason on Brew Crew territory.